welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a super simple recipe for you. The cold weather is coming, so we are making tomato soup. Now this is one a lot of people prefer to eat this out of the can, but we honestly find it's just as fast and really easy to make it from scratch. I mean, we do use canned tomatoes, not strictly speaking from scratch, but here we go. Let's start with some ingredients. We have 2 cans of tomatoes. These are the large cans, the 28 ounce. A couple of onions. We're going to use a little bit of lemon juice in there as well. And we like to add a little cream if you want to keep it strictly vegan. You can leave the cream out, of course. Now, for the onions, we don't want to make them particularly small. We're just going to cut them into, just cross-cut them here. Because what we're going to do is we're going to sweat these in the pan for a little while before we put the tomatoes in. So we're going to get this chopped, just cross-cut like this. Not particularly small or anything, and that is going to go into our pot first, along with a little bit of oil. So there we go, heat on. And we have a little bit of olive oil in there. Butter also works. But again, if you want to keep it vegan, you want to stay with something like olive oil or vegetable oil. And then in go our onions. And we're just going to let this sweat for a little while. So onions go in, a little bit of salt to help bring out some of the juices in there. Once all of your onions are in there. So salt and pepper. And you can really decide how much onion you want to use in this recipe. We're using 2 fairly large ones. There we go. And here you can see they've been cooked for a little while, and they're all really nice and soft. You do want to make sure you get the onions cooked all the way to soft, because once the tomatoes go in, they're not going to cook as much. So now we're going to add our cans of tomato. Now the recipe below, I believe we're cutting down to half of the recipe that we made in the video. But here you can see we're adding 2 cans of tomatoes on top of our 2 large onions. And we're just going to give it a little stir. Now this is the whole canned tomatoes. We're just going to let that cook for a little while. We're going to cover that with the lid. Little bit of vermouth. So what we do is, instead of adding water to get all of the remaining tomato material out of the cans, we're actually going to add our vermouth and a little bit of lemon juice in there now. And we're just going to swish that around a bit to get all that remaining tomato out of the can. Give it a little rinse. And then into the pot. You do want a little bit of acidic juice in there, so we like lemon juice, and we just like that little extra flavor boost from vermouth. We use, as you've seen in a few of our recent videos, quite a lot of vermouth in the kitchen. Little stir, and then covered, but just cracked slightly. You don't want to completely cover it. We do want this to reduce a little bit. It sort of intensifies all the flavors. Once it is reduced, we're going to add our cream. And then just going to burr mix it. Now, if you don't have a burr mixer like this, a stick blender, you can always use a food processor or a blender. It's a little more complicated, potentially a little bit more messy, but will work just fine. You don't need the stick blender, although I do recommend it. It's very handy in your kitchen to have a stick blender. So you just want to make sure everything's nice and smooth. We don't get it completely smooth in this recipe. We do leave some little chunks in there. We just like to have a little texture in there. It's going to be not completely smooth. It's going to be grainy a little bit from the bits of tomato and everything. That's fine. If you want it smooth, you will have to strain it. I don't think it's necessary for tomato soup. And it's at this point that you're going to want to give it a taste. So once you've got your stick blender squared away, Give it a little taste, and now's when you want to adjust the seasoning and see if there's anything that it needs. Does it need to be spicy? You can add some Tabasco, a little bit more lemon, a little bit more salt, as you see here. Not quite salty enough for Chef Caleb's taste. A little bit more lemon juice here. And I mean, you can add many things here. A dash of Worcester sauce. Now that will once again make it not vegan again because there's anchovy in there, but whatever you use to adjust your own flavoring in your soup. Yeah, here we go, a little bit of Tabasco sauce. And give it a good stir. And then once it's all hot, that's it. You're set. We're ready to go here. That's how easy it is to make tomato soup from almost scratch. Give it another last little taste. Now this is a classic dish. We like to serve this with a grilled cheese sandwich, as shown here. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes that you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.